Hi, everyone. I am Bill Mitchell. I am a retired deputy sheriff out of Coconino County. Um, I was uh, presenting some information before for the police academies. I ran across Dr. Dara at a training, and he had mentioned me talking about my story and my sons as well. Um, and the topic really doesn't cover everything that's encompassing in this. Uh, this is the stuff that when you retire or you make it through to a retirement point, this is the stuff that just doesn't wash off. And we'll kind of dive into some of this from a couple of different perspectives. Um, but if you have any questions or want some additional information, there's some stuff that I go through that it's very personal. So please bear with me. So yes, I am a retired deputy sheriff, former military police. You can see some of the other things that I've done there. Just a quick recap of just some of my experience with trauma and being in different careers of helping people. We all pick up some vicarious trauma along the way. So this is just a more of a talking point to show that there are places that people pick up these things, undercover street crimes, being promoted, working several different districts. My patrol district itself was the Grand Canyon, the south rim of the Grand Canyon. That's a very large area. If anybody's familiar with Coconino County, it's the second largest land county in the country. My patrol area was about 7,000 square miles. So it encompassed a lot. So I had to be my own first responder in a lot of resources. So how I really got into the position that I'm in today. So July 20th, 2016, I was working patrol just outside of Flagstaff. I was actually working on just doing some computer work, sitting in a neighborhood, kind of monitoring traffic. Um, Happened to look up at the San Francisco peaks, and if you know anything about Flagstaff or the heights of mountains in Arizona, the San Francisco peaks is 12,633 feet. Um, I happened to be sitting there watching a storm roll up over the mountain, and about 10 minutes into me just sitting, looking at reports and hearing a tone come out on the radio for a possible lightning strike. Obviously, I was within 10, 15 minutes of the Snowball area, which is the base part of the San Francisco peaks. We got a call of three individuals struck by lightning. Um, as I was making my ascent up the hill to the parking lot where I was going to meet everybody to stage, I got word that one of the subjects was down, and two of them were trying to make their way down through the trail and get to the parking lot where we could medically assess them and move additional resources to them as needed. Um, it wasn't immediately known to me, but there was a teenager that was struck and killed on top of the mountain. Um, and at the time when I was staging resources, I was talking to my lieutenant on the phone. I stepped out from underneath cover and I was walking around a treed area. Um, my next memory is I'm in a completely different place of the parking lot. I am wearing a rain jacket and my rain jacket is dry, but my clothes are soaked. Uh, my phone, I had looked at my phone and the phone battery had exploded. I couldn't quite put together what I had missed or what gaps I had. I just needed to continue on with the mission, which was I knew I had people that needed help. In that process, I had search and rescuers, I had ambulance medical personnel ready to go. We had requested some air resources, but I was still stuck in this confusion of not sure what was taking place. Um, in that time, from then, a couple years after, it was discovered that I had potentially received a peripheral strike of lightning during the storm. Um, just for context, the weather service had indicated there was over 400 lightning strikes in an hour's period at that time up on the hill. So a lot of normal things that people would think, oh, that, being in being able to watch a thunderstorm or a lightning storm, um, I don't have that approach anymore. Uh, After all of that, I was awake for a number of hours, still trying to process through what had happened. The next morning, after not really sleeping that night, the next morning when I checked on, I had responded to my partner that I checked on at the same time. She had keyed on the radio that she was out with an accident scene on I-40. The long and short of that was we had discovered a 1-month-old that was crushed underneath a vehicle. So two really highly dynamic events and calls that I had to respond to in a short amount of time. Still trying to process from the lightning strike. Now this call, I had just kind of reached that overflow limit. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. Got to my office, told my lieutenant that I needed some time away, and simply went home. Um, Took me quite a while to figure out who I could reach out to in my community. If you're familiar with the northern half of Arizona, there's very, very few resources for mental health and even less for first responders. So I reached out to several people within the Phoenix area, and finally made a connection with a clinician. Was able to get in, start getting treated right away, realizing that I was just not the same person. And even my wife recognized it as well. So seeking my own help and assistance led me to start a quest of what kind of resources are available for first responders. During that quest, uh, it was discovered that uh, there was a few things in my law enforcement career that I just never dealt with appropriately. And which is why I talk about this. It's called the boomerang effect. It's something that I talk about with new officers all the time. It's what you put off dealing with today comes around to hurt you later. And that is exactly true. It really can make the problems worse, and it can exacerbate the issues and problems. But there is a mechanism to deal with it, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But just understanding that most first responders are stuck with this. They'll cram everything into a small little box, and they will cram it down so deep and hope that the genie never comes out of the bottle. But this is all just typical things that any first responder that is involved with traumatic scenes, this is just their coping mechanism for the majority of the time. Of course, there was some stigma that came along with that. I was a big tough cop. I wasn't going to go take time off for any kind of mental health stuff. You couldn't have told me that stigma existed prior to this event. It just wasn't something that I was willing to deal with. Um, People had referred to, oh, you should just go to choir practice, which is usually beers at somebody's tailgate of their pickup truck after shift. I work for a county sheriff's office, so I was not that when I checked on and off, I checked on from home. I checked off at home. It wasn't something I was going to stick around and talk with people about. But that in itself, leading to not wanting to talk to people, really kind of separated uh, the trauma from the person in the ways that I couldn't even address it with close friends at the time, or even my spouse. And although she was a first responder, she was a dispatch supervisor at the time, there was still things that I couldn't share with her about the things that was rattling around in my head. Um, Not knowing or not realizing that the correct mechanisms were, I get back into working out heavy again, hiking, being outdoors, being out in nature, talking with pastor, mentor friends, close friends that really understood. That was just something that most first responders aren't dealing with, and even still today. All right, so knowing all that, um, excuse me, this is my son, Daniel Beckwith. He was a Flagstaff police officer, and uh, this was actually his graduation from the academy. It's one of our laughing moments because we always had the brown versus blue conversation. Um, but it was when I got to pin his badge on, it was a very proud moment. Much like my path, my son had followed um, a lot of the things that I had done. He had been in the Air Force, graduated college, again, involved in several events that I'll show you and go through and see if I can explain some of the vicarious trauma that he picked up and was not uh, really able to process or deal with in that context. So of his calls, um, he was involved with a fight of a person that was high on bath salts. Um, that is a very complex and dynamic situation to be involved with. Um, it is very unsettling for first responders in the fact that you're usually there alone. There's no other assistance or resources for you. You're simply trying to use what you have available at the time to contain the situation while getting additional resources to you. See if this video will pull up. So the video really just chronicles his fight with the gentleman. He struggled with this for quite some time. He had a significant injury to his knee, which he had to be on light duty. And the funny thing is, we have the exact same scar from the exact same issue or incident where I was fighting with somebody and ended up cutting my knee open to the point where I had to have surgery. This went on for quite a long period of time, this fight. Um, and he had actually tried to tase the person. Taser was ineffective based on the bath salts and ingestion, and he was not in the right mind. Body felt no pain, no pressure, so that led him to physical fighting. My son was not a big kid. He was 5'5", 165 pounds. He was a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he could take care of himself. But where he was standing was on some shale rocks, and it just wasn't great footing to be on. The person rushed him, tried to attack him. During that attack, he had tried to pull his service weapon out, but ended up just punching this person until an off-duty firefighter had helped, had intervened, and really helped control the scene while my son could get up, gather his senses about him, and then take care of business while backup was ready. Um, the other One of the other scenes that we had talked about quite a bit was he was at Northern Arizona University. He was the second person to arrive on a shooting on campus. He said one of the hardest things he had to do was step over somebody that was, to him, obviously deceased. He had to step over that person to get in to clear the room. He from this point on began to struggle with some moral issues, uh, really starting to see man's inhumanity towards man. And it really, this particular scene, I believe, was probably his most, it's where his moral injury really evolved from. He was then, a short time after this, he had responded to a trespassing call where the person again was high on a substance and would not comply with any verbal. direction. So he resorted to the tools and weapons at his disposal. He did have backup at that time and was able to subdue the person after a period of time. Both officers had to physically fight with this person. And my son had actually broken several bones in the back of his hand trying to punch this person so many times because he had grabbed his duty belt. He had grabbed by his weapon, and that just was not acceptable for him for obvious reasons. So it was uh, the again, he was surprised and shocked of the level of force and the level of violence he needed to bring to this person. And it was again just adding to that moral injury. He then had a complex sexual assault where he was the initial investigator on the scene. Again, can be very complex, very hard to process. But again, I think you can start to see the accumulation effect of the traumas that he had been going through and exposed to. But again, the department was all about just trying to move forward and get to the next call. And he embraced that. I'm not going to say it's the department's issue or problem. He never once said, "Hey, I'm having a moment. I need a just step back for a second, catch my breath." Uh, so at that time, it was very hard for him to express to people the issues and problems he was having. Being that this one will pull up either my when I'm sitting at home, my wife and I were happened to be sitting there. She actually had a night off, which was very unusual. Um, my son had called and he said, "Hey, Dad, I got in a shooting. Uh, this is my one call I get before I go sit in the back of the car from there. Um, I'm okay. I'll give you a call later." I said, "Well, let's just go meet for breakfast in the morning." Uh, when he started laying out, and I didn't get to watch the video until much later. Um, we talked about him having moral injury. I said, "Walk me through what happened with the call." So he was very articulate about his approach, the things that he did, the commands that he gave. And in the video, it does show several times where he does take a lot of time to communicate to the person to drop the gun. Um, this person happened to be an elderly gentleman, 78 years old, that was diagnosed with some medical issues and according to the family later on, really did have a desire to die by law enforcement. So suicide by cop. Um, During the course of my son giving commands to this gentleman to drop the gun, uh, he turned and pointed the gun at his other squad mates that were there, taking positions. He did fully see the gun when the person turned and pointed it at his partners, and that's when he made the ultimate decision to take his life. Um, he needed to really stop the level of violence and the threat of this person shooting other people in the complex, and he took it very personal in the fact that he shot a total of 5 rounds. All 5 rounds hit the person, and he even told me, he says, "I feel bad for each of those rounds that hit." Uh, when we talked about this, not just the first incident, uh, during breakfast after the shooting, we'd actually had a couple of different times where I went and picked him up from his house and we would go drive in the woods just to give him a break. He kept saying, "I just want to get back to work. I just want everything to be normal." Um, for him, normal never really came back around. He, when he had his time off during the officer involved shooting investigation, uh, he was really put off that the department, nobody would reach out to him. Nobody would, he knew he wasn't going to talk about the case. but he just felt so abandoned by the people in his department that it really made it unbearable for him in a lot of different ways. He had developed this new family, the Blue family, and he really wanted to be involved with them. These were people that he, in his own words, blood, sweat, and tears with, that simply stopped talking to him. So again, it continued to add to his moral injury and him feeling that he did something wrong. He was ultimately cleared from the investigation as it was a justified shooting. But getting past the moral injury was very hard. And we came to find out later that it was one of the ultimate decisions that really shaped him. So once he got cleared by a clinician, he had gone back to work. He had been at work for a little bit of time. He'd called me one night on shift and he says, Dad, I see his face in the mirror every time I look up. I said, well, buddy, you need to take some time off. He listened. He went in, filled out the FMLA paperwork. And so this is 2018, towards the end of 2018. Filled out the paperwork, uh, started to look around in the area to find somebody to talk with about the things that were he was experiencing. I couldn't find anybody. He had gone to a couple of different clinicians and just wasn't making a connection. So he then decided that he needed to move, not just from house to house, but he needed to get out of the Flagstaff area. So he moved down to Mesa, him and his wife. Again, she was a dispatcher at the time, and she had gotten a job with an agency in the valley, and he simply needed to get away from the triggers that he had from just being in Flagstaff. Through that process, he had tried to connect with several different clinicians. I had tried for him. He just was not in a place where he would listen to any kind of ability for somebody to get him to someplace. Uh, he had gone to see a psychologist. He'd gotten with a psychiatrist. He'd gotten on some different medications, but kept telling me that, Dad, the medications don't work. I just need to drink alcohol. So he began to really self-medicate. Um, and I finally uh, was just talking to him and explained to him, look, I've made it through these incidents, these problems as well. This is how I did it. Uh, why don't you follow a little bit more of what I'm doing? He just was not ready to listen to that. Um, and I really believe that if he had some of his closest friends within the department be able to really drive that point home as well, that the outcome would have been different. Um, excuse me, I gotta take a drink. March 12th, the night of March 11th, I'd gotten a call from a friend of mine that I worked with. He was actually one of my squad mates. He had transitioned to another Valley agency. He contacted me and said that, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of your boy. He's not answering his phone. And I said, well, just go over to the house. And he says, well, I'm at the house. Listen to what I'm saying. I can't get a hold of your son. I turned to my wife. I said, grab your stuff. We're going. We hopped in my vehicle. We drove down to Mesa. And in that process of driving, he had taken his life. He was only an officer for 4 years, but he, in that 4 years, was very impactful. He had completed his goals, which was becoming an officer, um, He did the hard things that some people just won't do. He did not hide from a responsibility. He did not. He responded to any call he was given. He just never took an opportunity to take the easy way out. So the cumulative effect of PTSD, I think that I've shown you all just some of the incidents that just kept building within him. Again, it builds over time. We know that. It's not typically just a single call, but it can be. But the single call can be the activating event. Um, for him, the criticizing, second guessing people, armchair quarterbacking his decision, that was a lot. He really struggled with that. The only things he heard were negative things from the department. He never really heard from his supervisor. He just had a really hard time with not having a connection to the department. So we always talk about badge hunters in the department. He felt that somebody was out to get his badge. Again, that's a hard thing for anybody to achieve. Once they've gone through an academy, they're tied to that identity. And he was too, in a lot of ways. But we always talk about the people that within each department that seems to be their goal is just to find people to pick off and see how they can, I don't want to say sabotage, but just get them to a place where they want their badge back for the department, feeling that that person doesn't meet the standards for whatever reason. And he felt that was, people were out for that for him. Some of the things that he and I both experienced and gone through: fatigue, headaches, insomnia, thirst. There was many times where a gallon of water was just not enough. He would call me at different times when he was on the road or stuck in places that he had no idea how he got there. And he would say, Dad, I've got my gallon of water, but I don't know where I'm at. He would literally get in his vehicle and drive to places that he had no idea where he was going. So I got to the point where I had to put my phone number on his water bottle for him to remember to call me. So these are just some of the signs that he and I had experienced. But in talking with the other first responders, these are pretty universal. The anxiety and panic attacks he really suffered with, withdrawal from friends and family, obvious. He's very apprehensive to go get help and ask somebody, hey, can you help me? Because that just wasn't within him to do. Line of duty deaths for 2019. And the reason that I bring this up is that was the year that my son passed. 230 first responders were killed while performing their duties. 378 had ended up taking their own life. And that's not just cops, that's all first responders services. So firefighters, EMTs, dispatchers, law enforcement as well. That's a lot of people. And typically that trend runs true today. There's usually more first responders per year that end up taking their life from trauma that they picked up on the job than are killed in the line of duty. It does take a physical and psychological toll to really immerse yourself in the worst things of humanity on a regular basis. And it is, again, in all first responders, this is a normal, and it's weird to say it this way, this is a normal occurrence. That almost all first responders are experiencing this on a regular basis. There are some of the command staff that end up promoting it very fast, so they don't have a lot of the lower level being on the road, handling the calls from day to day a lot. But everyone across the spectrum that is involved with being a first responder, they all pick up these same traits. Some of the healthy management, these are the things that when I'm talking to first responders, these are the things that I'm giving them. Exercise, obviously, being outdoors, family time, seeking support. When I get to this point, I get a lot of people that they're like, what do you mean by support? Because my wife could be supportive in some ways, but I'm not going to burden her with the traumas that I experienced. And I simply tell them to find somebody within their trust circle to really have that ability to talk. Uh, and and I've explained to people many times, I give people my personal phone number. If you run out of people to call, and you simply just need to talk through an issue, or you just want somebody to listen for a minute, call me. Uh, that to date, I get for every academy class I teach, and I teach this information, I get calls from every academy class. I get usually 5 to 7 calls from the academy, from somebody in the academy, that they're looking for a resource. They're looking for, hey, I need validation for this. Did I see this right? Am I experiencing this okay? Uh, those are great resources. So when I tell people to seek out support, I'm really pushing this forward because my generation would not do this on a regular basis. We would internalize this until it ate us up. I'm explaining to them that this needs to happen in real time. There are those appropriateness to talking with different family members, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And I explained to them heavily, it's like we all hear when we fly. You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help anybody else. And that's when it comes to being a first responder, this is first and foremost that I impress on anyone that I talk to that is a first responder. If they're simply not willing to help themselves or take that step forward, uh, they can't really effectively help other people. The sad thing is the majority of officers and first responders do that regularly, but they're not. There's no compassion. There's no empathy. There's no behind the scenes support. Uh, Take it slow. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Mental health is just as serious as physical health, and watch each other for signs and symptoms. I really impress upon supervisors when I teach supervisor level classes that they need to be the ones responsible for watching their people that they're supervising. I do put a lot more pressure on supervisors because that could be the stopgap. That's where it's easier for those supervisors to really notice things on a regular basis than sometimes their own squad mates will. Um, and I explained to them, you can't be a first responder or a cop 24/7. Yes, we're all tied to that identity, and I'm still tied to it today. But you can't do that 24/7, 365. There's just no mechanism for long-term success. And it does become really hard to maintain. This is a little saying that I picked up along the way. Be hard to kill, be easy to love, be kind with your words, be generous with your time, be ready to strike, be controlled with your temper, be open to growth, be willing to heal. Excuse me. Be protective of your reputation, be respectful of all, and be ready with a plan for violence at any time. So what does it look like? These pictures of him were actually taken after his shooting, when he was still struggling, right at the beginning, before things really got bad. Already knowing now that he was struggling, uh, it was there is no real look to it. So you just got to be prepared. That is all I have. Dr. Darrett, thanks for letting me present.
Bill, absolutely, bro. This is really obviously a very heavy story because it encompasses both you and your son's journeys. And, I am very appreciative for you for being willing to share this because from you can see from the comments here that are being made, how it is touching a lot of people personally. I even got a text offline from a friend of mine who said that they're in a similar situation now, and if it's okay with you, I'll put you in touch with them so that way you could kind of talk through and communicate with them because our goal is hopefully in prevention of stuff, that happened with Daniel, and this is hard. So, as a family member, as a family unit, what have you and your wife done and your family done to try to celebrate his life, and then also to be able to keep? And I like that you just smirked, you just smiled when I said it to celebrate his life, because I hope that I could see that maybe something is being done. So tell me about that step first, if you can.
Yeah, so we excuse me, the anniversary of his passing, we take a trip. He loved to camp. He loved to travel. So we do that every year. Um, we find a new place to go to, someplace that he talked about. Um, we've even revisited. We've been to Kauai and Maui several times. We spend a lot of time on the beach. That was his favorite spot. He learned to scuba dive in college, and I can't believe he actually got college credit for it. Uh, but he became a certified diver. So we spend a lot of time around water.
That heals. Yeah. So you travel and you get into the water and have a good time.
Correct.
Bill, we have some questions online here as well. Reagan asked a question. Hey, thank you for sharing so much your insight and of course condolences. You mentioned connecting with a pastor as a recommendation as a chaplain. What advice do you have for this role in the context of the experiences of both you and your son?
My entire take is different than it ever has been. I still work with mental health with first responders pretty regular on a daily basis. My main focus now is just talking. I really engage people in conversation with what are you thinking? How's it going today? When I teach mental health classes and I talk about the hard conversations, any of these conversations are really hard for first responders to open up about. But once you have made the connection with somebody and you've been able to at least get them to share, don't stop. Give them a pause, give them a chance to breathe, but don't stop talking. Give them the ability to understand where you're coming from, a place of healing, not a place of harm. And I'm really pushing as many departments as I can to really develop their within their department of peer support. That was something that could have truly benefited him uh, and connecting him with that resource. I've been working really hard with agencies in the northern half of Arizona to start a peer support and even a regional peer support, just because things are so limited to access of things up here. It does make a huge difference to just know somebody from a shared experience. Really does have a basic understanding. So that broken people know broken people. That's where I come to sharing of information from.
Thanks, Bill. Um, um, overburdening, I suppose, if you know what I mean. Because you're such huge advocates of stuff that have you faced that barrier at all where you face pushback from the department, that he was with, or how you helped as you were trying to help to shape peer support and bring more programmatic stuff into the department?
Yeah, I continue to get pushback from it doesn't matter to the department. It really does matter. The you can see the level of caring. for their staff. I have, for lack of a better term, I've pissed off chiefs because I just show up and ask, hey, can we have a conversation? It wasn't until the new police chief took over for Flagstaff Police Department that I could actually have that honest conversation with him. And he is very focused on mental health of his staff, not just the patrol officers, but staff in general across the board. That's huge. I haven't seen that level of support in the northern part of Arizona and most other agencies that I talk to in the country. I haven't seen that to that extent. So that's a huge step. But yeah, I get pushed back a lot. I simply I take it for a little bit, and I just keep pushing. I don't have the ability to stop trying to pursue other things, other officers not experiencing the things that my son did.
Thanks, Bill. I know that you tried to get him help prior to all of this stuff going on. For parents who are first responders and their kids are first responders, especially, I suppose this question could even be extended to people who have kids that are non-first responders. What could you think of as far as techniques or tools that you could try to get them engaged in going for services or to get in treatment? Um, and I know that's a tough question to answer because, it was very tough with Daniel to try to get him help. But anything lessons learned, I suppose, because, we always try to use crises as learning opportunities too, right?
Yeah, I've my biggest push with him was he was an adult. And he continually reminded me of that. Dad, I'm an adult now. But when it came to the last couple of weeks before he had finally made the decision, um, I would I would call him. I would even show up at his doorstep at odd hours, and I'm 2.5 hours away from him. I would show up and just be present. I'd say, hey, buddy, let's sit down and talk, or let's go hang out in the pool. Let's go take a drive. Those things, I realized in that moment that what I needed to be saying was, dude, we got to get you into something different. We need to get you to somebody else. And I would, behind his back to some degree, I did reach out to several different clinicians. And I even got some pushback about there's nothing I can do for cops. There's nothing I can do for first responders. That was a little unsettling. So I've really started pushing, trying to find vetted resources because again, I don't want to run into another situation where I refer them to somebody and them not being able to handle the trauma that first responders typically bring. So I take it as a personal challenge to I've reached out to people all across the state and the country to try to find resources, vetted resources for first responders to go to. But I think being more just short of picking him up and taking him to a clinician or to a facility for inpatient, whatever. Uh, the conversation that I gave him wasn't enough. And I know behind the scenes I was doing different things to try to get him, and his mom was too, trying to get him different resources. Um, Ultimately, demons got the best of him. And people are going to do what they're going to do. I've expressed that. I've talked to a number of parents that they do the same as I do. Beat yourself up about the conversations that you never had. People do what they're going to do if they have access and means. He was an officer. He had access to weapons. Although his wife at the time took the keys to the safe, it took him literally less than 5 minutes to break into the safe and get the gun. So getting people to help and assistance really does need to be a hands-on approach. In the fact that if I if I could have stayed with him in his house more time and really got him to a place of uh, listening, being able to listen, and getting him the right resources, I think his outcome could have been much like mine.